Yes. First and above all, I would like to say thank you for iCapital for giving me this opportunity and platform to express my ideas. As you can see it from the slides, the topic of my presentation is the need for independent insurance regulatory authority for Ethiopia. I have also a disclaimer, announcement. All the opinions, ideas, and thoughts expressed in my presentation solely represent Mr. Fikru, and they do not necessarily represent my employer or others. I have, crafted my presentation in three main parts. The first one, in the first part, I will dwell on the what and why of independent regulation. In the second part, I will try to shed some light on the global experience in light with the challenges in Ethiopian context. And finally, I will try to give some recommendations on the way forward. Okay, historically, this regulation, insurance regulation, dates back as early as 15th to 16th century, but recently, in most countries, if not all in the world, all governments have strong regulatory authorities that supervise insurance and reinsurance businesses. These days, this regulation of insurance is entering into a new era, and we expect our regulators also to just jump on the bandwagon. Regulators, they are said to be the creators, makers, and breakers of insurance industries because they control, the fate of the insurance companies from birth to death. According to International Association of International Association of Insurance Supervisors, this institution is an international association for supervisors. It has, set some parameters to consider a certain regulatory authority independent. They have around, 4 major parameters. The first one is, the first one is supervisory independence. To consider a certain regulatory authority, it must be it must have supervisory independence, institutional independence, budgetary independence, and regulatory independence. Most importantly, these supervisory authorities should be independent from government influence or political influence. There are two variables or pillars repeatedly mentioned in their standards. These authorities should be free from political interference, and they should appoint the leaders, the officials, based on merit and based on their experience and related, merits to the insurance industry. Otherwise, we cannot consider them as independent. This we must understand. Unless these 4 pillars stated are, fully met, we cannot say a certain regulatory atmosphere is independent. These regulators, they have many functions, but I will focus on the evolving mandates of these regulatory authorities on top of, supervision and prudential regulation. These days, regulators or authorities in, developed insurance markets, they have started to support the insurance industry through creating conducive regulatory environment. Their evolving mandates include, for instance, promoting public-private partnerships, promoting innovations and development, designing competitive laws that could create, peaceful or lawful competition among players. And, in some countries, they also promote insurance services to the public. Regulators, they should also, consider, as expressed in the morning session, they should understand the unique nature of insurance from various perspectives. They should know that insurers are different from bankers in terms of their functions, in terms of their business models, in terms of their risk exposure and regulatory mindset, as well as the required expertise. These issues must be addressed. Coming to the reason why, countries need independent regulators. Yes, independent regulators, they provide equal opportunity both for the private and the public sectors. Otherwise, in our case, we can see that the regulators, they are not giving equal platform for the private and the public sectors. The other issue is about avoiding a single point of failure. Insurance regulatory authorities should be independently structured to avoid single point of failure and to avoid confusion and build public trust. When we see the experience of some selected countries, I will be brief, as I said, as much as possible. Different countries, they follow different regulatory, setups, but the regulatory authorities in developed countries, they have independent supervisory authority dedicated to insurance. Some of them, they have included pension and others, others financial services related to insurance, but they have dedicated supervisory authorities for insurance. I want to dig deeper and give you some, more about one of the authorities I identified, the Kenyan Insurance Regulatory Authority. They have, they have clear strategy as to how to manage and regulate the sector. They have targets in terms of insurance penetration, insurance density, insurance coverage, customer satisfaction index, level of automation, awareness index, and knowledge management repository. All these issues we are not currently seeing in Ethiopian case. Almost all countries in the sub-Saharan Africa, they have started to reform their regulatory authorities and to set up independent regulators. When we see, even the experience of the Kenyan industry after, setting up a separate regulator, the insurance industry has registered many, results. When we see even the structure, the board structure of their regulatory authority, the Central Bank of Kenya, the Retirement Benefit Authority, the Capital Markets Authority, the Association of Kenyan Insurers, the Association of Insurance Brokers of Kenya are also represented in the board of the authority. This gives them a platform to maintain or to air their interests in their regulatory organ. These issues we need to, I think we need to adopt in our case. When we see the Ethiopian experience, I would like to divide my presentation for simplicity into three parts. The first phase starts with the imperial regime. During the imperial regime, the regulatory authority was first under Ministry of Economic. Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Then in 1970, it was a milestone in the history of Ethiopian insurance regulation. This proclamation number 281 1970 proclaimed Insurance Council. Insurance Council was formed, and to be chaired by the then Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and at the end, the Office of Controller of Insurance was also set up during that time. During the Derg regime, I'm trying to be brief. During the Derg regime, there was also another, proclamation which makes Ethiopian insurance, the sole operator, the monopolistic operator in the country through confiscation of the assets and liabilities of insurers then operating in the country. The supervision was under National Bank of Ethiopia. EIC functioned as a monopoly operator nearly for 2 decades, up to 1994. Then, during the post 1991 period, or from the 1991 period until now, the supervision is under. Sorry, it's not visible, I think there.
So you're left with exactly 2 minutes.
Okay.
I'm sure you're going to help us wrap it up.
Okay, no problem. When we see the existing structure, organizational chart of National Bank of Ethiopia, the Insurance Supervision Directorate, is found under Financial Institution Supervision Cluster. As you can see it, I think you can see the structure. It's somewhere, annexed somewhere. This shows that, government and the regulatory, the National Bank of Ethiopia is not, giving due attention to the insurance supervision. Insurance, it has also a diminishing role in Ethiopian context. The supervision is also scattered. They have, jam-packed all, institutions which have, the names associated with financial institutions, but they have missed the important ones. For instance, insurance, pension, health insurance, they are somewhere, they are managed somewhere else, but they focus on, the famous on-site supervision and off-site supervision. But when we see the way they are structured, according to the International Association of, the standards set by International Association of Insurance Supervisors, we can conclude that they are not independent because they don't, fulfill the 4 pillars. They are not, it's not regulatory, it's not meeting the standards under regulatory independence, supervisory independence, institutional independence, as well as, budgetary independence. There are so many challenges associated that, with the regulator that I have collected for this presentation, but due to interest of time, I'll not, go into details, but, most of them are, I think I have mentioned them earlier, but what I suggest is, this regulatory authority must, they must give, they must provide attention and care for the insurance industry to prosper, so that it can reach where others have reached. Finally, I would like to go to the conclusions part. Just you can, leave the challenges part. Yes. Yes. My conclusion is one, it's loud and clear. I have mentioned it earlier. Yes, we need independent authority, insurance regulatory authority, most preferably answerable to the Ministry of, Finance and Economic Development. We don't need, multiple layers in between because these layers, they are not, adding much value to the growth of the sector. The National Bank of Ethiopia should also let go of the insurance industry because, they are not contributing much to the sector. Because when we see the insurance penetration, density, branch to population ratio, if we measure the growth of the industry in all the SI units of insurance industries, we are found at the bottom. So this is the right time to leave the insurance industry and set up independent regulatory authority. And I don't think we should, waste our time with the current structure. We need an independent authority with regulatory, supervisory, institutional, and budgetary independence, even before eyeing to liberalize the market to the international competitors. I think I can. Do I have time? Sorry, I've tried to be, as much as possible to be in time. This makes, the end of my presentation. Okay, thank you.